Everyone says that I am the most flattering person around Su Yue. I peeled walnuts for him with my bare hands and went to buy him roasted sweet potatoes at 3 in the morning when I had a high fever. Even when his white moonlight came back, I was the one who went to pick her up at the airport. Su Yue said, I just found a substitute to entertain myself. They said I was sick. I knew I was a stand-in, but I still pushed forward. I lowered my eyes. Oh, but Su Yue is also a stand-in. 1. I felt a little uncomfortable at night, so I took my temperature and it was 39.6. I took some medicine and planned to lie down. The cell phone started ringing. Meet the bar, come over. The sound in the microphone was very noisy, and Su Yue's voice was drunken. I sighed. But I feel a little uncomfortable. Come here if you're not dead. I changed my clothes and went out to take a taxi, and took off the fever-reducing patch on my forehead before entering the bar. The medicine and fever-reducing patches seemed to have little effect, and the body temperature was still frighteningly hot. The music in the bar pierced my eardrums and made my head ache dully. When we found Su Yue, he was playing with the dice on the table with his head down, with a beautiful woman sitting on each side. I walked over and said to one of the girls, "Please get up for a moment." She looked at me with dissatisfaction. "Who are you?" I was speechless for a moment. In their words, I am Su Yue's bootlicker. The girl would look at his expression, and when she found out that Su Yue didn't take her seriously at all, she became more and more unscrupulous. There are so many people who like Yi, and she's not even a chicken feather, but she acts like a legitimate wife right away. Am I right, Yi? Su Yue glanced at me, said nothing, picked up the wine glass and drank, then asked the girl, "What do you want to eat?" The girl's eyes rolled around. "I want to eat pecans in the shell." Su Yue completely ignored me and called the waiter. After a while, a plate of walnuts with their shells still on were brought over. To eat the walnut kernel inside, you have to break open the outer shell with your hands. The girl's delicate voice sounded again. I asked her to help me peel the walnuts. I want to eat some. I looked at Su Yue. After Su Yue drank the wine in his hand, he put his arms on the girl's shoulders and played with her hair from time to time. He turned his head to look at me, his eyes hazy with drunkenness. "Do you have anything to say?" I looked at him calmly. "Do you want me to peel it?" Fuck. I don't know where his temper came from. He kicked the table angrily, and a few walnuts rolled to the ground. Peel it. Peel it with your hands. Good. Under the deafening music and dazzling spotlights, I peeled it bit by bit with my bare hands. The shell of pecans is much harder than the paper shell walnuts on the market. My fingertips were cut by the hard shell and blood oozed out. I casually took a piece of tissue to wipe off the blood. Then continue. There were more and more tissues on the ground stained with my blood. The clinking of glasses and laughter at the booth gradually died down, and they all turned their eyes to me. My fingers were covered in blood. Kujianye. I looked up. He was looking at me at first, but when I looked up, he turned his face away and picked up the beer on the table and drank it in sips. Pretend not to hear me. I called out again, Su Yue. He didn't look at me, very impatient. Speak. We're out of tissues, can you get me a pack? He slammed the wine glass in his hand onto the table, turned around and looked at me angrily. Is that what you want to say? I didn't understand where his anger came from, and looked at him in confusion with a frown. He gritted his teeth. There's no tissue, lick it clean yourself. Blood was still oozing from my fingertips, and I wiped it on the hem of my skirt. The red blood stains instantly spread across the white dress, making it look both charming and eye-catching. I heard the girl who originally asked for walnuts say, "Is she sick?" Then there was a bang. Su Yue smashed the wine bottle at hand. Broken glass and wine were splattered all over the floor. The girl screamed in fear. What's wrong with you?" Su Yue stood up with a dark face. "It's boring, let's go." I didn't move. Su Yue yelled at me. "Didn't you peel enough walnuts?" I stood up calmly, but the next second I felt extremely dizzy and my vision went black. I lost consciousness and my ears were filled with mocking voices. "Awesome. The fever is so high and you come whenever I call you. Otherwise, he would be called the #1 bootlicker around I. 2. No wonder they said that." Su Yue never hesitated to say to his brothers in front of me, "We need a substitute to entertain ourselves." Every time this happened, they all turned to look at me. I just sat there quietly without crying, making a fuss, or getting angry, willing to be a substitute. I am well behaved and obedient around him, but Su Yue also gets annoyed with me sometimes. He once left me on the roadside during a heavy rainstorm late at night. No matter how much you resemble her, you are not her. Don't bother me anymore, I said. I'll think of a way. Ill. He drove away in a cloud of dust. I didn't go to see him for about 3 months after that, and he appeared in front of me again in a rage. Didn't you say you would find a way? I answered truthfully. I am thinking about it, but I haven't thought about it. He roughly dragged me into the car and said, "Go somewhere with me." Since then, I have reappeared beside Su Yue. One night, his friend called me and said, I passed out from drinking. When I arrived, Su Yue was lying on the sofa with a pale face, as if he was not breathing. Like dead. With a buzz, my mind went blank. My tears didn't stop until I could still feel his heart beating. You're crying as if I is dead. Don't worry, he just drank too much, he's not dead. But I'm still worried. He was still sent to the hospital for a heart check. I stayed with Su Yue the whole night that day. He woke up before me and was looking at his phone. His brothers took a picture of me looking like I was at a funeral last night and posted it in the group to make fun of me. Are you so afraid that I'll die? Su Yue asked me. I raised my hand to feel his heartbeat, beat by beat, clear and strong. Su Yue said, Brother is fine even after getting a heart transplant. He is very lucky. My eyes dimmed in an instant. The heart was beating clearly under my palm. This heartbeat once belonged to someone else. 3. When I woke up in the hospital as expected, Su Yue was not by my side. The nurse came over to take my temperature and it had gone down. The fingers that were injured from peeling walnuts have been bandaged. Su Yue didn't contact me during this period. A month later, his group of brothers suddenly made a bet. How Man is coming back. Let's take a gamble and see how long Jianxi, the substitute, can stay with a Yi. A week. A month. 3 months. How Man is Su Yue's white moonlight. I received a call from Su Yue in the evening. Drive to the airport to pick someone up. When How Man saw me, she looked me over from head to toe. What a poor imitation. You actually followed me for so long. I drove quietly without responding to her words. When the car was waiting at the traffic light, How Man looked at me through the rearview mirror. I heard that you were the one who took the initiative to pursue I. Your boyfriend had just died in a car accident before that. Ano also had heart surgery during that time. 4. I slammed on the brakes. How Man, who was sitting in the back seat, was not wearing a seat belt. She rushed forward madly and hit her head on the front seat. Are you sick? Do you know how to drive? I pointed to the red light and said, If I didn't know how to do it, you wouldn't have a chance to talk to me by now. She angrily fastened her seat belt and started to touch up her makeup. She finally calmed down during the rest of the drive. To the box. The moment the door was opened, everyone's eyes were focused on it. They looked me up and down and then began to laugh at me. A fake is a fake. When the real thing comes out, it's so bad that it's unbearable to look at. The whole room burst into laughter. How Man also glanced at me sideways, her eyes full of mockery. Su Yue was a little different today as well. He put away his usual casualness for once, wore a white shirt, and sat in his seat with his back straight. A space was deliberately left empty next to him. I usually sit there. Now How Man walked over automatically. I turned around and tried to leave. Su Yue called me. Did I let you go? We are going to drink later. You are responsible for sending How Man back. Thinking back to the last time he passed out from drinking, I looked at his heart and frowned. Don't drink too much. His brothers burst into laughter again. You still don't know your place. How Man is back. Is it your turn to care about her? After being a stand-in for so long, I really take myself too seriously. I walked to the corner and sat down, took out my phone and played Candy Crush quietly. It became lively over there and someone suggested playing Truth or Dare. I don't know if it was a real coincidence or those people did it on purpose to bring How Man and Su Yue together. The mouth of the wine bottle was pointed at How Man 3 times in a row. How Man chose Truth twice. The first time someone asked her, Why did you return to China this time? How Man said, For one person. The whole audience started to boo in an ambiguous manner. The second time someone asked her, "Is that person here?" Hao Man's ears turned red. "Yes. Why don't you just report ICE ID card directly?" "No, the game is to see through it but not to say it." The third time, Hao Man still wanted to choose truth or dare. I was stopped. "You can only choose the same option twice in a row. The third time you have to choose a different option. Hao Man can only choose the big adventure. Choose a boy here and give him a kiss." Hao Man blushed and turned to kiss Su Jianya's mouth without hesitation. The scene of the two kissing freezes. I happened to look up and met Su Jianya's gaze. I ignored it and switched from Candy Crush to WeChat, and found the group where they initiated the vote. How long can Jianxi, the substitute, stay with a Yi? One day. I choose. Damn, which brother is so cruel that he only voted for one day? In the ambiguous atmosphere, someone suddenly complained. "Voters Jane timely?" They turned to look at me. I turned off my phone and looked up. "What prizes are there for winning?" Su Jianya looked at me with a dark face. "Jianxi, what do you mean? I won't come to see you starting tomorrow." He gritted his teeth. "Who are you to make this decision? I'm the only one who can't let you come." I pointed at Hao Man and said, "Why don't you chase her away? You're just a stand-in, are you worthy?" "Yeah." I nodded, "Then I win." Su Jie looked grim. No one present dared to speak. After a while, someone finally broke the ice. "How dare you? We are playing the game so well, why are you talking about betting? Come on, let's continue playing." They played Truth or Dare again. This time the mouth of the bottle was aimed at Su Jianya. "Ano, what do you choose?" Su Jie's tone was still not very good. "Big adventure. You can afford it, right? Then, girls here, choose one and kiss her." I saw Su Jianya turn around, hug Hao Man and kiss her without hesitation. Everyone was clapping and cheering. My stomach began to burn and I began to feel nauseous. Then came waves of cramping pain. I held my stomach, my face pale with pain. Finally, he couldn't hold it anymore and ran into the bathroom in the box to vomit. The pain in my stomach only got worse. I curled up on the bathroom floor in so much pain, feeling dazed and having hallucinations. I seemed to see Su Yue. My Su Yue. 5. Su Yue and I have been together since high school. We were each other's first love, were admitted to the same university, and stayed in the same city to work. Originally, we should be able to have a good future. The year I graduated as an intern, I worked so hard in order to successfully become a full-time employee that I often forgot to eat. If you keep starving, your stomach will start to have problems. One time I worked overtime until very late and hadn't eaten all day. My stomach problems came back and I was in so much pain that I curled up at my workstation. I have finished taking the medicine I prepared. Su Yue, who came to pick me up from get off work, was heartbroken when he saw me. He poured me a glass of warm water and told me to have a good rest while he went to buy medicine. He left for a while, and when I felt a little more comfortable, I turned around and found that his phone had fallen by the water dispenser. Worried that he didn't have cash, I picked up his phone and planned to go look for him. When I got downstairs, I found a lot of people gathered on the opposite side of the road. Some people hurried past me and headed toward the crowd. It seemed someone was killed over there. My heart seemed to be pulled hard by someone. I told myself not to think too much. But he still couldn't help but walk towards the direction where the crowd gathered. Isao Si Chui. He was lying in a pool of blood, with the stomach medicine he bought for me scattered around him. "Su Yue, Su Yue." I ran to him crying. He was lying on the ground covered in blood. I didn't dare to hug him because I didn't know where to touch him so that he wouldn't feel pain. I wanted to call the police, I wanted to dial 120, but my hands were no longer under my control, and my hands holding the phone were shaking. I could only cry and beg the onlookers, please help me, please help me." Someone comforted me. "Don't worry, little girl, we have already called." Some people also took out their phones to take pictures of us, saying, "This young couple is so loving." Su Yue opened his eyes and said with difficulty, "Don't cry." I cried even harder. I really wanted to hug him, but I was afraid of hurting him. I could only sob and keep calling his name. "Su Yue, Su Yue, Su Yue, Su Yue." He slowly raised his hand and covered my face. "Don't let them take pictures. You're going to get married in the future." The ambulance pulled up next to us. Medical staff carried the stretcher down. Su Yue's hand slipped away from me little by little. I quickly reached out and grabbed it, but I couldn't feel his pulse. Don't. Su Yue, don't. At 22:13 on February 14th, I still lost Su Yue. 6. The bathroom door was kicked open and I saw Su Yue. Coming in with him were Hao Man and his brothers. They looked down at my miserable appearance. I told you she's not that carefree. Now she's just trying to make herself miserable, so that I will feel sorry for her. You're quite good at pretending. You were quite straightforward just now, but now you're pretending to be pitiful again. I sat against the wall holding my abdomen, when suddenly a basin of cold water was poured over my head. I shuddered and looked up to see the instigator, Su Yue, looking at me with cold eyes. It's just a stand-in, there's so much drama. A plastic bag can't hold as much as you can. Disgusting. I was in a mess and looked at the place where his heart was. At this moment I finally let it go. He only has Su Yue's heart. But it has nothing to do with Su Yue. Su Yue would never pour cold water on me. He wouldn't ask me in the middle of the night to buy him roasted sweet potatoes even though I had a fever. I will not let deliberate humiliation make me do things for other women. He won't deliberately give me alcohol. I won't let his friends laugh at me. It won't embarrass me. I stood up, walked between them and headed towards the door of the box, with the water stains spreading along the way with my steps. When I was about to walk out of the box, Su Yue yelled at me. Jianxi, did I fucking let you go? I walked out resolutely. Su Yue's roaring voice came from behind. Leave now, and don't show up in front of me to disgust me in the future. The door was closed by me. 7. I went to see a psychiatrist. After Su Yue passed away, I suffered from severe depression. I have been receiving treatment. Dr. Su has always been my primary physician. I greeted him with a smile. Dr. Su, how are you doing recently? It doesn't matter if I'm okay or not. What matters is if you're okay or not. I told the truth. It should be fine soon. I can accept the fact that that person has nothing to do with Su Yue. Dr. Su suddenly frowned. I don't think so. Some people can't survive if something they've been holding on to is suddenly gone. It's like their spiritual support suddenly collapses, and their world is destroyed. I really worry about what will happen to you if the thing you've been holding on to is gone one day. I still smiled. No, I'm fine now. Dr. Su sighed. Let's do the test first. The diagnosis came out and it was still severe depression. Dr. Su was very frustrated. You are the most well-behaved patient I have ever seen, but you are also the one whose treatment is the least effective. You have begun to make me doubt my professional ability. I took the initiative to comfort him. No, I think Dr. Su's treatment is very effective. He smiled bitterly. No matter what, I still hope you can get out of this and live a good life. 8. I haven't seen Su Yue for a long time, and have completely deleted his contact information. When I have nothing to do, I will make an appointment with my good friend Nanchi to go shopping and eat together. Everything is fine. But Su Yue suddenly appeared in front of me again. In the afternoon, Nanchi and I were tired from shopping, so we went to a tea restaurant for dinner. Halfway through the meal, Su Yue and Hao Man walked in. There are not many people in the store today, and many seats are empty. But Su Yue chose the position opposite me. He sat side by side with Hao Man. After the dessert was served, Hao Man fed him one spoonful at a time. Hao Man would occasionally act coquettishly and ask him to feed her, and he would scoop up a small piece and feed it into her mouth. The two were very affectionate, just like a young couple in the passionate love period. I saw that everyone on the table had almost finished eating, so I asked Nanchi, have you finished eating? Let's go back. Let's go. When leaving, there was a loud noise of something breaking suddenly coming from Su Yue's table. Hao Man screamed, your hand is bleeding. I suddenly remembered that in the past, even if Su Yue had only a small cut from a knife, he would wake me up in the middle of the night to bandage it for him. He always complained it was ugly because the bandage was not done well at first. A man insisted that I tie a bow for him. Later I learned many ways to tie knots. This time though I left the restaurant without looking back. 9. I felt thirsty in the middle of the night, and when I got up to get some water, I saw that there were more than a dozen calls from unfamiliar numbers on my phone. I finished my water and called back. Su Yue's hoarse voice sounded. Why don't you answer the phone? I hung up directly. He called again. I blocked the number. Another strange number called. I have been with Su Yue for some time, and I have some understanding of his character. There is some paranoia in my bones. Not wanting my phone to blow up all night, I answered the call. What do you want to do? He asked persistently. Why didn't you answer the phone? It's on mute. He paused. In the past, no matter how late it was, I could always find you. That was in the past. In the past, I did work 24 hours a day for Su Yue, a very qualified bootlicker. I said. If there's nothing else, I'll hang up now. I have a fever. Can you come over? I feel terrible. Su Yue gets fever very easily, and he says it's an after effect of his surgery. So every time I heard that he had a fever, I was always very nervous, fearing that it would have some effect on his heart. But after asking the doctor, he said it was just a reaction of the body's immune system and had nothing to do with the heart. Only then did I feel relieved. No time. Don't forget what you said. I hung up the phone directly. 10. Su Yue was lying on the sofa, with more than a dozen mobile phones on the coffee table. Now no matter which number I used to call Jianxi's number, it is always turned off. He couldn't accept that Jianxi, who had always been so obedient, would actually ignore him one day. When Jianxi first said those words in the box, although he was angry, he actually didn't believe it. Everyone knows how much Jianxi loves him, so how could she possibly leave him? In the end, she was discovered pretending to be pitiful in the toilet in order to win his sympathy. But he also wanted to punish her because she had dared to say that she would leave him, so he poured cold water on her. Later, when she left, he also said harsh words to her. But this was not the first time he said these words to her, and every time she would come back to lick him. He always felt that this time, it should be the same as any other time they quarreled. Jianxi would definitely not last more than 2 days and would come back to find him. But 2 days passed and she didn't move. 2 weeks passed and she still didn't move. A month passed and he was so angry that he called Jianxi's number, but found that he was blocked. He couldn't tolerate this situation, so he deliberately inquired about Jianxi's schedule. Knowing that she was going for afternoon tea, he deliberately followed her. He even acted very ambiguous in front of her on purpose, just waiting for her to get angry. But she didn't. She left calmly. She just left like that. The doorbell rang. Su Yue instantly got up from the sofa and went to open the door. He knew that Jianxi couldn't let him go, and it was impossible for her not to come to see him after she knew he had a fever. When I opened the door, the person who came in was Hao Man. Hao Man looked worried. I heard you had a fever, are you okay? Why is it you? Su Yue lay back on the sofa in disappointment. Hao Man took out the medicine she brought and said, I'll go get you a cup of warm water. You take the medicine. No. If you don't like taking medicine, I'll make you a cup of ginger tea. Drinking it will make you sweat and reduce your fever. No. Hao Man suddenly became quiet for a long time, then she whispered, Do you want to ask Jianxi to come before you are willing to take the medicine? Ah no, you used to like me the most. Su Yue lay flat on his back, his arm resting on his forehead, covering most of his face. His voice was muffled. I'm sorry, I don't know. Hearing the uncertain answer, Hao Man suddenly became excited. She's just my substitute. You keep torturing her. You can't possibly like her. You just got used to her existence. Now that I'm back, you will slowly forget about her and get used to me. Su Yue was silent. Hao Man's eyes turned cold. Do you think Jianxi treats you so well because he likes you? She is just like you. She also used you as a substitute. Su Yue suddenly opened his eyes. What do you mean? She had a first love who she dated for a long time, but he died in a car accident. He signed an organ donation agreement before he died. And you just happened to have a heart transplant during that time. Bang. Everything on the table was overturned. 11. The next evening, Hao Man suddenly contacted me. I refuses to take medicine at all. Now he is delirious due to fever. You should come over and try to persuade him. No. Just after hanging up the phone with Hao Man, another call came in. This time it was Ice Brother. How can you be so cruel? At least you have been with I for more than a year. Now he has a fever, and you are not willing to come to see him. I hung up. Later, 7 or 8 more calls came in. Almost all of them were from Su Yue's brothers, scolding me for being heartless. But no one remembers how Su Yue tortured me at that time. How man called me again. I just said that his heart was hurting. I was stunned for a moment. Send me the address. But when Su Yue was found, he was sitting on the sofa, intact. How man and the brothers who took turns bombarding me with phone calls were all sitting around me, looking at me with eyes that seemed to be enjoying a good show. It was How man who spoke first. You believe it this time, right? Su Yue's face turned pale, and he smashed the water cup on the table to the ground. Jianxi, how dare you use me as a substitute? I'm not surprised he knew about this, but I hate it when he jokes about his heart. Don't do this kind of thing in the future. It's very childish. It's none of your business, he patted his heart. I bought it with my own money, so I can do whatever I want with it. Su Yue seemed to have lost control and became ferocious and hysterical. I knew long ago that he was paranoid in his bones. How could a proud man like him tolerate being used as a substitute by others? He is the only one who uses me as a substitute. He might take revenge madly, but I'm not afraid. I have nothing left to lose. I'm planning to leave. Su Yue picked up the teacup and smashed it accurately on my forehead. Jianxi, just wait. You won't have an easy time either. There was blood flowing from my forehead. I clenched my fists but finally let go and turned away. 12. Nanshi applied medicine to my wound, complaining as she did so. Is Su Yue crazy? He hit me so hard. I was in a daze and didn't say anything. You should be careful during this period. I'm worried that he will do something harmful to you. I nodded to reassure her. Finally, Nanshi looked at me and seemed to want to say something but stopped herself. I smiled and said, I remember that I will go to see Dr. Su tomorrow. Nanshi held me in her arms and said, remember, you are not the only one in this world. I will be with you no matter what. You must get better soon. However, Dr. Su's diagnosis was not optimistic. The severe depression did not improve at all. Dr. Su's brows were knitted together. Your condition now is worse than last time. I don't know what event could destroy your spiritual pillar, but I hope that event will never happen. If it does happen, Shuri, I hope you can survive it. I lowered my eyes and said, thank you, Dr. Su. After leaving Dr. Su, I began to feel inexplicably uneasy. When I got home, I found Su Yue standing at my door with a sinister look on his face. His whole body exuded a manic aura and a strong smell of alcohol. 12. I ignored him and tried to open the door. He pulled me over and forced me into a kiss, the strong smell of alcohol overwhelming me. Some embarrassing memories emerged. My body began to shake uncontrollably. Almost subconsciously, I took out the knife that I always carried in my bag. The tip of the knife was pointed at his heart. When I was about to stab, my chaotic consciousness began to clear up, and I stopped the action abruptly. Su Yue also noticed it and he let me go. He held my hand holding the knife, staring at me with a pair of bloodshot eyes. Come on, stab here. I wanted to withdraw my hand, but he stabbed my hand inside. The knife had cut through the clothes. I pulled my hand away with all my strength. Su Yue, what are you crazy about? Su Yue laughed and pointed at his heart. Do you care about this? Do you think that as long as it's still beating, Su Yue will still exist in this world? I tell you, he died a long time ago. Su Yue died a long time ago. There was another person who received the heart transplant surgery with me that day. He was the recipient of Su Yue's heart. And he had rejection after the surgery and has died. Su Yue no longer exists. My blood froze in an instant, and his words were like a sharp knife piercing my eardrums. My head was buzzing and in chaos. Shut up, Su Yue, just shut up. I didn't want to listen to him anymore, so I took out the key and tried to open the door. But I couldn't align the key with the keyhole no matter what I did. The key fell out of my hand once, twice, 3 times. I picked it up again and again numbly. Look carefully. This is the evidence that Su Yue no longer exists. Su Yue threw all the paper evidence he found in front of me. Those words seemed to be piercing into my eyes one by one as if by a carving knife. In an instant, something collapsed inside me. I am an orphan and I have always been alone. In the past, I thought my life would continue to be dark. It was Su Yue's appearance that tore open the crack and let the light in. He, who had excellent grades, took extra lessons with me, who was at the bottom of the class, and managed to raise my grades to get me into a key university. After the college entrance examination, he estimated my scores and helped me choose a school and a major. When the admission letter came, I found out that he had chosen the same school as me. I was so angry that I cried. With his grades, he could have chosen a better university. He just said that the major he chose had good overall conditions in this school. In order to relieve me of the psychological burden, he also took me to meet his parents, and said that his parents very much supported his choice. I always thought I was holding him back. So I also worked very hard in college and strived for various scholarships. After I started working, I also worked hard to get a permanent position in a large company. I am getting closer to Su Yue little by little. When happiness is within reach, Su Yue is gone. The lighthouse went out. Later, when I learned that he had donated his organs, a little spark of life began to burn in my world again. I think as long as my heart is still beating, I can keep going. But now everything has collapsed. My eyes gradually became empty, and those words became distorted and huge in my eyes, and then swallowed me in one bite. My 5 senses began to dull. The scene of Su Yue yelling at me with red eyes seemed to be muted and slowed down as it played in front of me. He grabbed my shoulders and shook me. He was shouting something. I can't hear you. The voice took a long time to reach my ears. Jinshi, wake up. Wide awake. What are you waking up for? I am awake. Teen. I am in hospital. Nanshi has always been with me. There was another person who seemed to come to see me every day, but was stopped by Nanshi. I watched him from a distance a few times. Don't know who he is. I only recognize Nanshi. He came again today but was stopped by Nanshi. But today seems to be a bit troublesome. In order to prevent him from seeing me, Nanshi was forced to go downstairs by him. I ran to the recreation area to watch TV. My fellow patient who usually watches TV with me was already sitting there. I only watch one episode of TV, and I like to watch the episode where the heroine jumps off the cliff over and over again. At first I was worried that he would ask me to watch the next episode, but then when I played the same episode over and over again, he just turned his head and looked at me and said nothing. The same thing happened today. I watched the episode where the heroine jumped off the building twice and originally planned to go back to the ward. But thinking about how pitiful it was that he could only watch this episode with me every day, I decided to make up an ending for him. After the heroine jumped off the cliff, an old woman picked her up and nursed her back to health. After she recovered, the old woman found that she was beautiful, so she sold her to a brothel and made a fortune. The man turned to look at me. That's not what you said yesterday. What you said was that the heroine jumped off the cliff and fell halfway, and was picked up by a crane and taken to the sky to be Chang'e's maid. Because the heroine was beautiful, Hui fell in love with her. When Chang'e found out, she hated Hui for cheating on her. But she couldn't bear to drive the heroine out of the palace, so Chang'e killed Hui. I blinked. Did I talk to you yesterday? He nodded. All right. I'm used to it, my brain can't remember things. The nurse called me back to take medicine. The nurse told me, it seems your friend is arguing with that guy downstairs. I swallowed the colorful pills, opened the curtains and looked down. Nanshi was indeed arguing with the man and looked very excited. The nurse said, if you want to go down and take a look, I can go down with you but only for a while. I shook my head. No, Nanshi won't let me go. The young nurse praised me. You are the most obedient patient I have ever seen. 14. Downstairs. Su Yue begged Nanshi with red eyes. Can you let me go up to see Shuri? Nanshi looked at him coldly. It's useless even if you kneel down and beg me. Don't forget, it's you who made she like this. Su Yue closed his eyes. He didn't dare to recall Shi's appearance that day. She didn't cry or make a fuss. She just squatted on the ground very calmly. He has no response to anything in the outside world, like a soulless puppet. He had no idea that incident would have such a profound impact on her. He just wanted to make her sad, to make her as sad as himself. Then let her know that he has nothing to do with Su Yue. He is not anyone's substitute. And if she wants to like someone, she can only like Su Yue. Please let me go up and see Shuri, okay? I'll tell her that this heart belongs to Su Yue. It doesn't matter if she uses me as a substitute. Nanshi sneered. The reason you took revenge on Shuri is because you felt that Shuri was using you as a substitute, and you felt wronged and angry, right? Have you forgotten that Su Yue is just a substitute for your entertainment? You even tortured her in various ways. Do you know? Nanshi's eyes became red as she spoke. You called her in the middle of the night and asked her to go out and do something for you. And it almost cost she her life. Rainy night. A drunk hooligan. Ali. Jane Shi was violated. If she hadn't still been obsessed with Su Yue, she would have died long ago. Nanshi wiped away her tears and said, Now that she has become like this, are you happy? Do you feel very satisfied with your revenge? Then please go away. Don't bother Su Yue again. Time is violated. Su Yue kept shaking his head and staggered backwards. Finally, his legs went weak and he fell to the ground. Su Yue was raped because he called her in the middle of the night to tease her and went out. 15. I had a nightmare again. The drunken man dragged me into the alley. I struggled desperately, but he became more and more excited. Mixed with the rain, my clothes were torn. The raindrops hit my skin and I shivered. I cried and begged. Please let me go. Please. I'll give you money, please. But my crying and begging made him more and more excited. He brutally tore off the last bits of clothing that covered my body, then strangled me and shook me. The sickening smell of alcohol overwhelmed me. The torture, like being torn apart by a wild beast, lasted for a long time. I could no longer cry and lay numbly in the dirty corner. I am dirty too. From early morning till dawn. Stop and start again. Stop and start again. Again and again. The beast finally left me and he spat. Who told you to hang around outside in the middle of the night? You deserve it. I think it would be better to die. Oh. Timely. Someone kept calling my name. I tried hard to open my eyes and saw Nanshi looking at me with red eyes. Are you okay? She hugged me. I realized that my face was soaked with tears. I said, I'm fine, I just had another nightmare. The one I told you about. Nanshi's body stiffened. It's okay. It's fake. It's all a dream. 16. I continued to receive treatment in the hospital. The man still insisted on waiting downstairs every day. But he never came up to bother Nanshi again. And Nanshi didn't have to go to great lengths to stop him. I still watch the episode of the TV series where the heroine jumps off a cliff every day. And the man who watches TV with me is always there. I would rack my brains every day to come up with an ending for his story, and he would always say to me, That's not what you said yesterday. I don't care what I said yesterday. I stayed in the hospital for a long time. It's been so long that I no longer like watching the same TV show over and over again. And I also remember what I said yesterday. I stopped making up endings for the men I watch TV with, and he asked me, When will you be discharged from the hospital? I shook my head. I don't know. Ask Nanshi. What about you? He said. About a week ahead of you. Oh. I cooperated with all treatments and took medicines on time. On a very ordinary morning, everything came clearly to my mind. After I took the medicine, I looked at the people who came to stand guard day after day and said to Nanshi calmly, Nanshi, I want to go down and explain things to him. Nanshi was stunned for a moment, then her eyes turned red. I'll accompany you. I shook my head. No. When I walked downstairs, he had already seen me. But he didn't dare to come over and just looked at me from a distance. I called him, Su Yue. He seemed to be frozen, staring at me in disbelief with his eyes wide open. I have something to tell you. After a long time, he finally ran towards me. It was not a long distance and the ground was flat, but he fell twice. He clumsily got up from the ground and stood in front of me, panic-stricken like a child who had done something wrong. Su Yue, you remember everything? I nodded. Maybe. He immediately admitted his mistake and slapped himself several times. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I shouldn't have done those stupid things from the beginning to the end. Su Yue, can you forgive me? I shook my head and stepped back. I will not forgive you. I came down here to tell you not to come again. Let's live our own lives. 17. But Su Yue seemed not to listen to what I said. He still appears downstairs every day. I no longer paid any attention to him, and continued to cooperate with the treatment seriously every day. I found out that the man watching TV with me was called Gu Changjing. Since I stopped watching the same TV show over and over again, he occasionally brings me some weird little gadgets to play with. It's weird but really fun. Today he brought some rubber figures that can be stuck to the wall and then flip down by themselves. I threw the 6 little figures against the wall at the same time, holding up my chin and watching them flip down little by little. I said, "Gu Changjing, I will be discharged from the hospital next week. Please congratulate me." Gu Changjing said calmly, "Congratulations. You must also take your medicine on time, cooperate with the hospital's treatment, and strive to be discharged as soon as possible." Gu Changjing said, "I will be discharged from the hospital tomorrow. I don't want to play anymore. Every time I play games with Gu Changjing, he plays better than me. I thought I could beat him in the matter of discharge from hospital, but I didn't expect to fall behind." Gu Changjing looked at me with a smile in his eyes. "It's okay. I can pick you up when the time comes. No need, Nanshi can take me there." 18. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, Su Yue was waiting downstairs with flowers in his hands. He looks much more mature and stable. Nanshi told me that he has recently started learning how to take over his father's company. Congratulations on being discharged from the hospital. Su Yue came over and handed me the flowers. Nanshi directly blocked it for me. "As long as you don't appear in front of Shi again, it will be the best blessing." Su Yue was still persistent. "If you need help in the future, you can come to me, and I will definitely help you." I didn't look back and closed the car door. After resting at home for another half a year, I decided to go out and find a job. But after learning about my special medical history, every company responded to me in the following way. "I'm sorry, Miss Jane, but you may not meet the recruitment requirements of our company." Later, I received a call from Su Yue. "He, I heard that you are looking for a job. You can come to my company." "No, thank you." After hanging up the phone, I continued to send out resumes. Nanshi told me not to work too hard, and that at worst she would support me for the rest of my life. I smiled and pinched her face. "Thank you, I will submit my resume tonight." Nanshi was amused and angry at the same time, stamping her feet to emphasize, "I'm serious." After sending out my resume for a long time without any response, I finally received a call inviting me to an interview. But I waited in the company's conference room for a long time, but the interviewer didn't show up. Just when I thought I probably had no chance, Gu Jingqing appeared at the door. "Sorry, I had to deal with something at the last minute. I kept you waiting." I looked at him with wide eyes in surprise, and then I heard the people following him calling him, "Mr. Gu." "Hey, Gu Changjing runs a company?" Nanshi's surprised voice almost overturned the company. I nodded while drinking my milk tea. "Then why is he hospitalized?" To be precise, he was accompanying his grandmother. The sick person was his grandmother, and she only allowed people who were wearing hospital gowns like her to get close to him, so he was forced to change into hospital gowns, and we misunderstood him. "So you're hired?" I nodded. "Yeah." 19. It's actually not that easy to join Gu Changjing's company. There are no secrets in the company. Just 1 week after I started working, all my colleagues knew about my medical history, but no one dared to embarrass me, because Gu Changjing blatantly stated that he was the one who recruited me. The only one who makes things difficult for me is Gu Changjing. He taught me personally and taught me everything he knew, but he was also very impartial. I was scolded by him many times. I have stressed this point many times. Why do you still make mistakes? I'm sorry, I'll be more careful next time. The damage has already been done. I will deduct half a month's salary from you as a warning. This will not happen again. But I don't hate Gu Changjing. I can still tell what is good and what is bad. I know he did it for my own good, and under his strict guidance I did grow very fast. Cooking for him was the fee he asked for as his apprenticeship fee. I don't remember how many meals I cooked for Gu Changjing. Today after get off work, I made him sweet and sour pork ribs. He took a bite and frowned. "It seems like there was too much sugar. It's too sweet." I brought the dish directly to myself and said, "Eat it if you want." He looked at me and chuckled. "Jianxi, you are getting bolder." When I first started cooking for Gu Changjing, I was very careful to take his taste into consideration. Every time I finish a dish, I ask him if it's too salty or bland. Then I keep it in mind and tell him to pay more attention to it next time. Now I ignore him. "It's time to get off work now. Gu Changjing." He shook his head and laughed, but still finished all the sweet and sour pork ribs. then cleared the dishes and washed the bowls. The days go by. When we went to the company's annual meeting, I climbed the ladder to put up streamers for the office. The person holding the ladder temporarily left to go to the bathroom. I didn't notice it and leaned back, causing the ladder to shake. I fell backwards with the ladder. Screams rang in my ears one after another. I was in the hospital again. Fortunately, the ladder was short and only caused scratches and bruises. I was sitting in the clinic waiting for my colleague to pay the medical bills when I saw Gu Chungjing walking towards me in a hurry. Before I could even ask him why he was here, I realized he must be attending a meeting at another company. The person was suddenly hugged tightly. "Why are you so careless?" I was stunned for a moment. "Gu," he said, "let me hold you for a while." At that moment, all the sounds around me seemed to be infinitely amplified, and I could clearly hear the crying of children and the scolding of parents mixed in. But it seems like I can't hear anything. I reached out to push him away. His hoarse voice sounded again. "Give me a chance, Su Yue. Let me chase you." I pursed my lips and tried to push him away. He had already let me go, and then I realized his eyes were red. I whispered, "Do you know why I'm in the hospital? I am really sick. I still have a lover I can't forget. I bit my lower lip. I was also violated by someone. You see me as normal now, but I'm not sure what will cause me to become sick again in the future. I'm full of holes and I'm not worthy of your love." He raised his hand and gently covered my eyes. "Never belittle yourself. As long as someone likes you, you deserve his love. I like you no matter what you are like." I sniffed and my eyes became a little wet. Fortunately, his hands were covering my eyes at this time, giving me a place to hide. "Sorry," I said. "I haven't let go of Su Yue yet. It would be unfair to you if I were to be with you." He withdrew his hand and ruffled my hair instead. "I'm just pursuing you, not asking you to agree to be with me right away. When you're ready to move on, remember to come to me. Okay?" The hospital is bustling with people and noisy sounds are heard everywhere. But this corner supported by Gu Chungjing is exceptionally peaceful and quiet. I nodded. "Okay. There will always be a spring when flowers will bloom." 20. Office building. The assistant walked into Su Jue's office. Mr. Su, Miss Jian fell down the stairs and was injured. Su Yue stood up from his seat and asked, "Which hospital?" The assistant took out his phone and said, "Why don't you take a look at this picture first?" In the hospital's clinic, Gu Chungjing leaned over and held Jianxi in his arms. It's like hugging a treasure. Su Jianye sat back in his seat dejectedly, with his head down, and did not speak for a long time. The assistant reported again. "Miss Hao Man is here again, do you want to see her?" "No. Tell her she can ask for any amount of money as long as she doesn't come to me again." The assistant nodded. "Also, Mr. Su, the report from the hospital is out. Your heart condition is not very good at the moment. You still need to be hospitalized for treatment as soon as possible. Otherwise it may affect your normal work and life in the future." "No need. And don't report this to my parents." "But Mr. Su, your body." Su Jaya rubbed his aching heart and waved to his assistant. "I know my own body. Has that person been checked?" The assistant was stunned for a moment before realizing that Mr. Su was asking about the man who had violated Miss Jian. "I found out. He was released from prison a week ago, but he seems to have committed another crime and was sent back to prison. This time he was sentenced to life imprisonment. It is said that." The assistant carefully glanced at Mr. Su's face and said, "It was Mr. Gu's work." Su Jianye lowered his head and smiled bitterly, and as he smiled, sobs began to form in his voice. The assistant left the office in silence. After a long time, Su Jie raised his head, calmed down his emotions and called Su Yue. "Hello. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry," Su Jie said. "You must be happy in the future. And bye."